Hi, it's me. And finally, we have a new Canon APS-C mirrorless lens, an ultra-wide model, something everyone's been screaming for, the RF-S 10-18mm f4.5 to 6.3 IS STM. It's designed for Canon's newest RF mount mirrorless cameras, but only offers a smaller APS-C sized image circle, so it's intended for their EOS R100, R50, R10, R7 cameras, and whatever might come in the future on APS-C. It will work on a full-frame camera, but your camera will automatically shoot in a much lower resolution crop mode when you use it, and this lens will not work on Canon's digital SLRs or their EOS M mirrorless cameras at all. That ultra-wide-angle zoom range is the full-frame equivalent of 16 to 29mm, so this lens goes wide from where other zoom lenses take off, which is fantastically enjoyable to use. If this is the first ultra-wide-angle lens you're considering getting, then you're in for a blast. Being just for crop sensor cameras means this lens can be smaller and much less expensive at $330, although its price in the UK of £380 is a bit steeper. Combined with having a fairly dark maximum aperture, the lens can also be comparatively tiny, which is very handy. That dark aperture can be a pain for shooting in darker situations, especially if you're shooting video, but at least this lens does have image stabilization. Here's some footage with that stabilization turned off and now turned on. As you can see, it's doing a lovely job holding your footage nice and steady. The lens is obviously small, and its build quality, despite being lightweight and almost all made of plastic, actually feels very solid and tightly assembled. Even the lens's mount is made of plastic. That's not a good sign, but at the same time, it'll still last forever if you don't abuse it. Its main control point is the plastic zoom ring, which also extends the lens in and out of shooting mode. It turns lovely and smoothly with barely any stickiness to it. Above that, with a different texture, comes the plastic focus ring, which also turns really smoothly. As you can see here, it works with the focus motor to respond very well to being turned. When zoomed in, the lens doesn't really suffer from any focus breathing. Zoom out though, and you get some quite noticeable warping. The lens's autofocus motor does not have a very strenuous job to perform, as you can see, but still it works perfectly, quietly and accurately. The lens has a small 49mm filter thread size. It does not come with a hood, although a small one is available separately. Overall, despite being very plasticky, the lens's build quality is actually very nice and it feels like a surprisingly tough little thing. Its electronics, autofocus and image stabilization are all very well implemented also. Nice job, Canon! So let's check out its image quality. I'll be testing it on a Canon EOS R7 camera with its extremely demanding 32.5 megapixel sensor, which mounts a huge challenge to any camera lens put in front of it. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. At 10mm and f4.5, image quality is razor sharp in the middle of the picture with excellent contrast. Sharpness remains very good across most of the image frame. The image is looking kind of ropey right in the edges though. Well, actually, there's a good amount of detail here considering the difficult sensor we're testing on, but fine lines are seeing a lot of digital artifacts, which immediately made me think that some heavy corrections might be going on in the camera. More on that in a minute. f5.6 and f8 look about the same. Stop down to f11 or darker and the effects of diffraction begin to soften the image quite considerably. Alright, let's zoom into 18mm then. The maximum aperture has now darkened to f6.3. I swear, Canon lenses are just getting darker and darker. Anyway, at 18mm and f6.3, image quality remains as fantastic as ever in the middle of the picture, as you can see. Again, the corner image quality is a little softer, but only a little. This is actually a fairly good showing, to be honest. Again though, f8 doesn't look any sharper, and at f11, things just get softer. To be honest, on a sensor like this, diffraction is technically starting to kick in already at the maximum aperture of f6.3. Overall though, this is actually good performance for a low-budget, ultra-wide lens. You simply must remember that the Canon EOS R7 sensor really is just ridiculously demanding. If you own a 24 megapixel camera, then you'll be very impressed with the lens. Alright, let's turn off the camera's automatic corrections and see about its levels of distortion and vignetting. Here is the image at 10mm with distortion correction on through the camera, and here is a RAW file I processed in third-party software. Wild. At f4.5 there's a fair bit of vignetting, but if you stop down to f5.6 then those corners brighten up a bit. Zoom into 18mm and that distortion is still there, though thankfully not as bad. Again, stop down a little from the brightest aperture and the corners brighten up a bit. So yeah, this is definitely a lens intended for use with in-camera corrections. The lens's minimum focus distance is a nice close 14cm, which is very impressive. At f6.3, close-up image quality becomes rather ghostly with a touch of blue colour fringing. Stop down to f8 though for a huge benefit. Now let's see how the lens performs against bright light. Good news here, whether you're zoomed out or zoomed in, flaring is quite minimal. While we're working in the dark, let's take a look at coma and sun stars. The good news is that this lens doesn't really seem to suffer from coma smearing at all. Bright points of light in the corners of your images look nice and clean. Well, let's zoom out and look for sun stars, stop down to f8 and they start to emerge. But it's only really at f16 or f22 that they become quite strong, and in order to avoid diffraction, you don't really want to be shooting at these kind of apertures in the first place. Finally, bokeh. It's essentially a moot point. You'll only be getting out of focus backgrounds with this lens if you shoot right up against your subject, although in those shots the out of focus backgrounds do at least look nice and soft. Overall, I'm really pleased with the little RF-S 10-18. It's small, inexpensive, fantastically wide angle, sharp. It just works really well and it's good value. So thankfully there's no more need to adapt old ultra-wide angle lenses for digital SLRs onto your R10, R50 or R7 camera. Well, unless you need ones with a brighter aperture, this thing will do nicely, and so it certainly comes recommended. Thanks for watching everyone. I love putting together these free lens reviews, but I couldn't do it without my Patreon supporters. I like to keep these videos coming and sponsorship free, so check it out in the description below. If you find yourself watching my videos often, there you can find all kinds of exclusive bonus content and early access to videos. Take care everyone, and God bless.